and in this video, I'm going to explain how to use all 12 tenses in English. Let's get started. As you might be aware, English has 4 present tenses, and you're probably familiar with the present simple, as in, I study. We use this tense when talking about facts, habits, and schedules. That is my phone. Fact. He studies every day. Habit. On weekends, we play soccer. Schedule. The present simple is by far the most common verb tense in English, so you'll get plenty of practice with this over time. The present continuous. I am studying. We use the present continuous to describe actions that are happening right now, as in, you are watching this video right now. I am speaking on camera. An airplane is flying through the sky. With this tense, the action is happening as we speak. The present perfect. I have studied. We use the present perfect when talking about how an action from the past describes the subject now, as in, I have studied English for 3 years. In this sentence, have studied English is a past action, but we're using it to describe who I am now. It's my experience. And we often use the present perfect to talk about someone's experience or lack of experience. She has eaten breakfast already. He has lived there all his life. They have never been to Mexico. We're using past experience to describe who the subject is now, and that's why this is a present tense. And finally, the present perfect continuous. I have been studying. We use the present perfect continuous to talk about an action that started in the past and continues non-stop into the present. I have been studying Spanish for 8 years. In other words, I started studying 8 years ago, I never stopped, and I'm still learning now. I have been studying. We often use this tense to emphasize when an ongoing action first started. He has been sleeping for 12 hours. She has been working 2 jobs since February. They have been traveling for 5 weeks. Okay, ready to talk about the past? Let's do it. And again, we have 4 tenses. First up is the past simple, I studied. This tense is very straightforward and very common. We use it when talking about an action that started in the past and finished in the past. For example, she worked last night. In other words, she started work last night and she finished work last night. He ate eggs for breakfast. He ate eggs then, he's not eating them now. I lived in Chicago when I was a child. I lived there then, and I don't live there now. Why? Because an action in the past simple is always finished in the past. Great, now we have the past continuous, I was studying. We use the past continuous to describe an action that continued over a period of time in the past. I was studying. But more specifically, we almost always use this tense to give context or background for another action. I was studying when the phone rang. We were living in Canada when we got engaged. He was running when he caught the ball. The past perfect. I had studied. This tense is also used to provide context for another action in the past. But the past perfect always comes beforehand. Sarah had already left by the time he got home. In other words, Sarah left before he got home. It could have been a minute before, an hour before, or a year before. All we know is she had already left. Let's look at 2 more examples. I had already booked the tickets when the concert sold out. In other words, I booked the tickets before the concert sold out. We had eaten a big lunch, so we weren't hungry when we got to the hotel. In other words, we ate a big lunch before we got to the hotel, so we weren't hungry. And finally, the past perfect continuous. I had been studying. And again, we almost always use this tense to give context. But the past perfect continuous describes an action that continued over time and then stopped at the moment of another action. I had been watching TV when the power went out. I was watching, power went out, no more watching. He had been eating pizza every day when he started the diet. Eating pizza, started the diet. We had been talking about going to France for years and finally decided to go. Talking about going, decided to go. Congratulations, we've now covered all the past tenses of English. Excellent work. We're on to the final stretch, the future. And again, we've got 4 tenses. Let's begin with the future simple. I will study. We use the future simple to talk about actions that we believe will happen in the future. I will call you tomorrow. We'll bring cupcakes to the party. He'll be there by 6 p.m. And yes, most of the time, English speakers shorten the word will to "ll," as in I'll study, you'll study, he'll study, etc., etc. And there's another form of the future simple that you might already be familiar with, going to or gonna, as in I'm going to call you tomorrow. We're gonna bring cupcakes to the park. He's gonna be there by 6 p.m. The will and going to forms have the same meaning, but going to or gonna is more casual. The future continuous, I will be studying. We use the future continuous to talk about an action that we believe will continue over a period of time in the future. For example, we will be eating dinner from 6 to 7 p.m. I'll be running errands all afternoon. And again, we can also use going to instead of will. They're going to be traveling all summer. The baby's gonna be sleeping when you arrive. The future perfect, I will have studied. We use the future perfect to talk about actions that will be finished by a certain time in the future. For example, she will have moved to a new apartment before the end of the year. In other words, here's the end of the year, and she'll move to a new apartment sometime before that. Could be a day before, a week before, a month before, any time. Let's look at 2 more examples. He will have finished his homework by the time dinner is ready. So, dinner is ready, and he finished his homework sometime before that. They will have come home by the spring. So, spring comes, and they came home sometime before that. The action will be finished before a given time in the future. And finally, the future perfect continuous. I will have been studying. So this time, we're talking about a continuous action that will be completed at a given time in the future. He will have been driving for 6 hours straight when he arrives. Now honestly, English speakers rarely use this tense, but when we do, it's to emphasize the duration of an action, how long it will take. We will have been living in Los Angeles for a decade this December. She will have been working at the company for 40 years when she retires. And that's it. We've covered all 12 tenses of English. Congratulations. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.